coming up on Mother's Day, and for the Cultivating Calmness podcast today, I want to wish everybody a very happy and wonderful Mother's Day. Whether you are a young mother, old mother, adoptive, foster, grieving, or in the thick of it and struggling, or you've got it all under control, mother, I am here for you, and I see you, and I feel that. And I definitely not a mom who has it all together, and I definitely don't know everything, and I definitely have my struggles. So happy Mother's Day to all of you, and join me today while I talk a little bit about Mother's Day, what that looks like, especially coming from a place where, I grew up without a mom, and what that kind of feels like and looks like for me, as an adult. So I talked a little bit about this several weeks ago on the podcast about hearing a song and really never really thinking about those memories that I had and what that looks like. And so sometimes grieving looks a little different when you're talking about, when you're talking about grieving just in general. But since we're talking about Mother's Day, I'm going to focus on that, and you can generalize this across any type of grief that you may have. Not everybody grew up with, positive or helpful or, really good relationships with their moms. Some were non-existent, some were toxic, or abusive, fill in the blank. There are many different types of mother-child relationships out there. So you can grieve a mom or a person for many reasons, not just their death, but also just their lack of engagement or their ability to parent, etc. So when I talk about these things today, you can look at it, from all of those lenses as well. So for me, growing up, a lot of what I experienced, my first Mother's Day was probably about 9 months after my mom died. And I remember being in the classroom, and the teachers, were preparing Mother's Day gifts. And, it's kind of like, well, what am I supposed to do? Who am I supposed to give a gift to? Because I don't have one of those anymore. So that was a sad experience, but also I think the teachers at the time did a really good job of suggesting who I could make something for. And that was like grandmas or aunts or other people like that. And I can't remember exactly at the time, but I believe, for many years I would make something, for my mom, but I would also make things for my grandmas and other special people in my life. And when we think about Mother's Day, it's recognizing all the, potentially all the people who did play a motherly role in your life. They may not have been your biological parent or your step parent or anything like that, but maybe they had that role and they provided that support that a mother would have in your life. And so as we head into Mother's Day, you may think about that. Maybe the mother you looked up to, maybe the mother you wanted didn't really exist for you, but maybe there's somebody else, and maybe that person didn't exist at the time in your life when you needed them, say, like as a child, but now maybe that person exists. And maybe now that person is your mom. Maybe your mom, and you have healed that relationship and things have improved. Or maybe it is somebody else and you're able to recognize the motherly role that that person plays in your life. So, when we think about Mother's Day, it's thinking about all of those people in your life. Maybe it's not your biological parent or the person who raised you, but it is somebody else who you look up to in that way. And that is okay. For me, I think it took a long time for me to really accept or acknowledge, you know, mom or anybody being mom, other than my mom. And so much so that I wouldn't call other people mom. I wouldn't, even jokingly address people as mom. I didn't like mom jokes, your mom type jokes for a long time. So that has, definitely had some healing. But for the first, I would say, decade or so of my life, that was really hard for me. But then my brother and sister, I know they had different experiences and reacted, very differently to mom type of things. They had no problem calling other, like their friends' parents mom, or, making mom jokes and talking about their mom being dead and things like that. So, you know, every person in a family can handle grief differently. So grief can look differently in everybody. Um, and that maybe goes to show that, like, the type of relationship you had. Now, I was 7, my brother was 5, my sister was 2. So we each, knew or had a different type of relationship with our mom, and remember probably less and less about her. And that's something that I started to, realize as I've gotten older. I have a lot of things of my mom's, and those things, I've just held on to, but I don't necessarily need to, and realize that my siblings don't necessarily have those things, and maybe want that connection or don't want that connection. And recognizing that, there were things that I remember or wanted that they do or don't remember, or do or don't want, because of their connection and their memory with her as well. So again, across the board, when we think about grieving looks differently for everybody. And then, when we think about grieving, it's also like the grief of things that you didn't get to experience. So it all started a few weeks ago with a song that was talking about, you know, memories and things you wish you could, like, go back to, or memories you're holding on to. And, I don't really have those. And that made me really think about the way that I view my relationship with my mom is a lot about, like, what's lacking, not what was there. So for people who have grown into adulthood, people my age whose parents are starting to, get into, like, older ages, and starting to die, um, they have a lot of those core memories, and growing up memories, and vacations, and school, and graduations, and weddings, and babies, and things. And they share those things with their parents, or, their loved ones. I didn't have those things. So a lot of the memories that I have are of things that I didn't get to experience with her. So she wasn't there for, middle school, high school, college. She wasn't there to tell me about her experience. I learned about her experience in college through, she luckily scrapbooked. So I was able to look through some of her scrapbook, things that she saved, articles about her, things that she did. I wouldn't have known any of those things if I hadn't found or been given these kind of scrapbooks that she had. I found old journals. I found old letters that she received and or gave to people. And so that's how I learned about my mom. Um, Most of what I learned from my mom, I guess, were from those types of things, versus even hearing it from other people. So hearing experiences and memories from other people is great. And those are the things that I also remember, but those aren't my memories. And so I do enjoy hearing them, though. There are experiences where, maybe as we were on vacation, and other family members remember certain things about interactions between, my mom and I, that I don't remember, that they have then told me, so that I'm able to hear those things and remember those things, but I maybe didn't necessarily remember them myself. So again, it's like what's lacking and what's missing. I don't know what her favorite color was. I don't know, um, if she liked college, if she didn't, if she, who she dated in high school, if she dated in high school, what was dating like, what made her choose my dad. I have my dad's side of that story, but I don't have my mom's perspective. Like, why did she choose my dad, and what made her, decide to get married, and, what, made her, why did she choose the career she chose, and, how, because when we learn those things about, like, our parents and the people we love, that can shape who we are and how we make our decisions. When you don't have that, it feels like, you're kind of starting from, you know, you're starting from behind maybe other people, then becoming a parent yourself when you didn't have that to kind of look at. Now, it's not that I didn't have parents. It's not that I didn't have adults who had healthy relationships to observe. I had many aunts and uncles with all my cousins to kind of watch and observe, and my friends' parents. But, I didn't experience that myself directly. So being able to um, know, like, how do you be a mom? Like, what is that like? Um, has been a weird sensation for me. I know, like, I'm looking at my kids now who are now a little older, just slightly older than I was when my mom died. And so I'm at that age where, like, I no longer had a parent at this age up. And that's hard. What does that look like? Why, how do you handle them when you didn't really have that to begin with? Right. So grief can show up in those instances where you're thinking, you look back and you're like, well, I didn't experience that. I don't know what that's like. And here I am in this situation and I don't know what to do about that. Of course, you can ask. You can talk to other moms and learn from other people. Yeah, we can do that. We can read books, all those things. But you didn't necessarily receive it. So then giving it and doing it yourself looks a little different. So that's just something that's played in the back of my mind. Really is like that experience of being a mom. What does that look like? Because I didn't have that, from most of my childhood. I had it for a small part of my childhood, and my brother and sister had it for even less. And I think we're doing the best we can, and we're doing I think a good job. I hope, but that has an effect on people, right? The relationship you did or didn't have with somebody can have an effect it can affect more than just the current time and place. You can take those experiences and they can go throughout your life as you reflect on it and look back on it and learn from those things and take from those things. And that's kind of where I'm at, like with parenting. Grief shows up in seeing other people. So like it's Mother's Day. And, at this point in time, right, it's been 31, it'll be 30 Mother's Days. This year, 30 Mother's Days that I haven't had my mom. And so I would say it's super sad, right? I'm not feeling sad about it. It's more of a reflection, wishing she were here, wishing she could see what's going on, wishing that I could celebrate her and be celebrated by her and being able to share those moments with her that I don't get to, being able to see my kids, interact with her and appreciate her like I hopefully would. It's, that's what Mother's Day can look like, or any holiday, right? For that matter, when someone is missing in your life. Now that hole, that burden, that sadness, I think for most people tends to get easier and easier as you go through life, right? Like it's been 30 years. It's been a long time. But those first few years, it was hard. And then when something new changes, right? When there's something that happens, right? So when I had my first kid, Mother's Day maybe looked a little different because I was becoming a mom for the first time. And then it's just reflecting on that. What is Mother's Day? What does that look like? How do we celebrate Mother's Day? How does one celebrate me? Because I didn't really celebrate, my mom. We got to celebrate her because she wasn't there, and we missed her, versus being able to celebrate what she did for us. It's just a whole, it's sometimes like a mind warp, when you really are digging and you're looking into what loss can really do in your life. And so this Mother's Day, when you think about you celebrating Mother's Day, if you have the privilege of your mother being around, again, whether she was a positive light in your life or not, you get to choose how you want to show that and how you want to experience that. And if it's not your biological mom, that's okay. It's also, even taking that time for yourself. If it's you acknowledging your role as a mom and that, hey, this job is hard and I need time to be able to think about, time and space to think about me and to do something for me, if that's possible, that's okay too. It's advocating for yourself. It's speaking up. It's saying, what you would like to do and maybe what you need on this day versus potentially, what everybody else may want to do. Sometimes that works out and that's great and that's what you want. And sometimes we don't speak up and we don't say things and then we are dealing with like resentment and negativity when that's not really what we want to see have happen for you. So if you're dealing like with me, being a mom, celebrating a mom in your life, missing a mom in your life, missing a child, or grieving in some way like that, it's okay to take time. It's okay to reflect. It's okay to have questions. It's okay to notice that you maybe see things a little differently than your peers and the people around you, or you celebrate maybe a little differently, or maybe you choose not to celebrate. That's okay too. You This time of year for me no longer weighs heavily on me, but it is something I like to address and talk with people about. Is just that kind of normalizing that experience that we all have loss. We all experience death in some way, shape, or form, and we can miss the people around us and feel happy about those memories and sad at the same time, and angry and all of the above, all of the emotions. And when we reflect, we may see and remember and feel different things than we ever have before, just based on where you are at this point in your life versus where you were 10 years ago when you experienced a loss. I know for me, that's changed. Just the way I interpret and look at things has changed over the years and will, I'm sure, continue to change. And as the people in my life who are older, like my dad and my aunts and uncles who are older, when they start to, pass, those I'm sure will be difficult experiences for me, not only because, they're family members and I care about them, but also for the role that they played in my life growing up that they didn't have to, or that maybe just a little unique between me and them versus, other people in other families who maybe have similar relationships, but not where they took on an additional role to the one that they were like assigned, right? An aunt who is also a motherly figure, something like that. So all that to say that Mother's Day can bring up a lot for people, good and bad, happy, sad, anger, frustration. And I want you to know, like, those are all normal, possible, okay. And we don't want to shove them away, but we also don't want them to grow too big and take over and bring you down. So taking whatever time that you may need, whether that's a private time or whether that's doing something more public, journaling, talking about it, saving space, like a seat at the dinner table type of situation, advocating for yourself and the things that you want and need. Those are all things that you can consider and think about doing for Mother's Day. So happy Mother's Day again to all the mothers out there. I hope you do enjoy your day this coming weekend. And I will see you again next week.